Your brain is rewiring itself right now, millions of neural connections forming and dissolving based on what you're doing in this exact moment. The question isn't whether your brain will change, it's whether you'll direct that change or let it happen by default. What I'm about to show you will fundamentally shift how you think about time, transformation, and what's possible in just one focused hour per day. Your brain physically rewires itself based on what you repeatedly focus on, and this isn't metaphorical, it's measurably real. When you engage in focused practice for just 1 hour daily, you're activating a cascade of neurobiological processes that literally reshape your brain's architecture. Within the first 20 minutes of concentrated effort, your brain begins releasing acetylcholine, a neurotransmitter that acts like a biological highlighter, marking the specific neural circuits you're engaging for potential strengthening. This highlighting process is followed by the release of norepinephrine, which increases your alertness and creates what neuroscientists call neuroplastic readiness, a state where your brain becomes primed for adaptation. But here's where the magic happens. It's during the rest periods after focused practice that your brain releases brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF, often called miracle grow for the brain. This protein literally stimulates the growth of new neural connections and strengthens existing ones. The structural changes are profound and measurable. After 8 to 12 weeks of daily focused practice, neuroimaging studies reveal increased gray matter density in regions related to your specific skill. Even more remarkable is the increase in white matter, specifically myelin, the fatty tissue that insulates neural pathways like electrical wire coating. This myelin sheath makes signal transmission up to 100 times faster and prevents signal loss, creating what researchers call expert-level neural efficiency. Studies of musicians provide compelling evidence of this process. Pianists who practice regularly show enlarged motor cortex regions controlling finger movement, while violinists display expanded brain areas corresponding to their left-hand fingers, the hand that performs the complex fingering patterns. London taxi drivers, required to memorize the city's entire street layout, develop significantly larger hippocampi, the brain region responsible for spatial memory and navigation. The key insight is that neuroplasticity isn't random, it's directed by attention. Your brain strengthens whatever neural networks you repeatedly and consciously engage. This means that 1 hour of focused, deliberate practice creates more lasting change than 5 hours of distracted, unfocused activity. The repetition must be intentional, the attention must be sustained, and the practice must be consistent. When these conditions align, your brain has no choice but to adapt, reorganize, and optimize itself for the skill you're developing. The transformation happens at the cellular level, creating permanent changes that compound over time. The mathematics of compound improvement reveals why consistency trumps intensity in skill development, and the numbers are staggering when you understand how neural adaptation actually works. When you improve by just 1% each day through focused practice, you're not simply adding incremental gains, you're multiplying your existing capability. After 1 year of 1% daily improvement, the mathematical result is 1.1 raised to the 365 the power, which equals 37.78. This means you become nearly 38 times more capable than when you started. But here's what makes this even more powerful from a neuroscience perspective. Your brain doesn't just accumulate skills linearly, it creates interconnected networks that amplify each other's effectiveness. When you practice a musical instrument, you're not just developing finger dexterity. You're simultaneously strengthening pattern recognition, auditory processing, timing coordination, and memory consolidation. Each improvement in one area enhances performance in related areas, creating what researchers call transfer effect. This compound growth occurs because learning follows what neuroscientists term chunking your brain packages small skills into larger, more complex abilities. Initially, playing a simple melody requires conscious attention to each finger movement. Through daily practice, these individual movements become automated chunks, freeing your conscious mind to focus on higher-level musical expression. Each chunk becomes a building block for more sophisticated skills, creating exponential rather than linear progress. The research on chess masters illustrates this beautifully. Novice players can recognize about 50,000 chess patterns, while grandmasters recognize over 300,000. This isn't just memorization, it's pattern chunking that allows instant recognition of complex board positions. Each daily practice session doesn't just add new patterns, it connects new patterns to existing ones, creating an increasingly sophisticated neural network. What's remarkable is that this compound effect extends beyond your chosen skill. Daily focused practice strengthens what psychologists call meta-learning, your ability to learn itself. You develop better concentration, improved pattern recognition, enhanced memory consolidation, and increased tolerance for the discomfort of challenge. These improvements accelerate your progress in your primary skill while simultaneously enhancing your capability to learn anything else. The key insight is that small, consistent efforts create geometric rather than arithmetic growth. Your hour of daily practice isn't just moving you forward, it's multiplying your capacity for future improvement. Each day builds upon all previous days, creating a trajectory of growth that seems almost magical, but is actually the predictable result of how neural networks strengthen and interconnect through sustained, focused repetition. Your brain operates on predictable cycles of high and low alertness throughout the day, and understanding these ultradian rhythms can dramatically amplify the effectiveness of your focused practice hour. These 90-minute cycles are governed by complex interactions between cortisol, dopamine, norepinephrine, and adenosine neurochemicals that fluctuate in predictable patterns based on your circadian biology. Most people experience their peak cognitive performance during two distinct windows, 1 to 3 hours after waking and again in the mid-afternoon between 2 and 4 p.m. The morning peak occurs because cortisol levels naturally spike upon waking, creating what chronobiologists call the cortisol awakening response. This isn't the stress-related cortisol you've heard about. This is optimal cortisol that enhances focus, memory consolidation, and learning capacity. Simultaneously, dopamine levels are at their daily high, providing motivation and reward sensitivity that makes challenging tasks feel more engaging rather than overwhelming. Your brain's prefrontal cortex, responsible for executive function and sustained attention, operates most efficiently during this window. The afternoon peak happens as your circadian rhythm creates a secondary surge in alertness. This occurs as core body temperature rises and adenosine, the chemical that builds up throughout the day and creates fatigue, temporarily decreases its inhibitory effects on neural activity. Many people mistake afternoon fatigue for this being a poor practice time, but research shows that brief exposure to bright light or cold can rapidly shift you into this secondary peak performance window. What makes timing even more powerful is the concept of circadian priming. When you consistently practice at the same time each day, your brain begins anticipating this focused work period approximately 30 minutes before your usual start time. Your body temperature rises slightly, cortisol and dopamine optimize, and neural networks associated with your skill begin pre-activating. This biological preparation means you enter deep focus faster and maintain it longer. Temperature regulation plays a crucial role in this timing optimization. Your core body temperature fluctuates by about 1–2 degrees throughout the day, and peak cognitive performance occurs when temperature is rising rather than falling. This is why many people feel sluggish in the early afternoon. Their temperature is naturally declining. Understanding your personal temperature rhythm helps identify when your brain is most receptive to learning. The key is experimenting to find your personal peak performance window, then protecting that time ruthlessly. Some people are genuinely more alert in the evening, but for most, the morning 1 3-hour window after waking provides the most consistent access to peak cognitive states for focused practice. Your brain's resistance to change follows a neurobiologically predictable pattern that has nothing to do with your character or willpower, and everything to do with how your nervous system is designed to function. Understanding this timeline is crucial because most people interpret normal resistance as evidence that their approach isn't working, leading them to quit precisely when neuroplastic changes are beginning to occur. The resistance isn't a bug in the system. It's a feature designed to conserve energy and maintain homeostasis. Days 1 through 3 feel exciting because novelty triggers dopamine release in your brain's reward circuits. This neurochemical response creates motivation and positive emotions around new activities. Your brain literally rewards you for exploring potentially beneficial behaviors. However, this novelty-driven dopamine boost is temporary and designed to fade as the activity becomes familiar. This initial excitement isn't sustainable, and expecting it to continue sets you up for disappointment. Days 4 through 14 bring the most challenging phase. The novelty has worn off, but the neural pathways associated with your new skill are still weak and require significant conscious effort to activate. Meanwhile, your existing neural networks, representing your current habits and comfort zones, remain strong and energy efficient. Your brain's default mode network, which governs automatic behaviors, actively resists the energy expenditure required for new learning. This creates what neuroscientists call cognitive load, making the new activity feel disproportionately difficult. During this phase, your anterior cingulate cortex, which monitors for conflict between competing neural networks, generates discomfort signals. These aren't warnings that something is wrong. They're normal indicators that your brain is working to establish new patterns while old patterns resist displacement. The discomfort is actually evidence that neuroplastic change is occurring. Days 15 through 30 present what researchers call the competency trap. You've developed enough skill to see progress, but improvement feels slower than expected. This happens because initial gains come from improved focus and reduced interference from competing thoughts, while deeper skill development requires structural neural changes that take longer to manifest. Your brain has also adapted to the practice routine, reducing the stress response that initially made sessions feel intense and meaningful. The critical insight is that resistance intensity actually correlates with the magnitude of change occurring in your brain. The days when practice feels most difficult are often when the most significant neural adaptation is happening. Your prefrontal cortex is literally rewiring itself to support sustained attention. Your motor cortex is optimizing movement patterns, and your memory systems are consolidating new information more efficiently. Your brain forms automatic associations between environmental contexts and behavioral patterns through a process called contextual conditioning, and these associations operate below the threshold of conscious awareness. Every time you practice a skill in a specific environment, your brain creates neural links between the sensory inputs of that space and the focused mental state required for practice. This isn't just psychological, it's measurable neurological conditioning that can trigger desired behaviors automatically. The mechanism works through your brain's pattern recognition systems, which are constantly scanning your environment for familiar cues that predict what behavior should come next. When you repeatedly practice in the same location with consistent environmental elements, specific lighting, Particular objects, familiar sounds, your brain begins firing the neural networks associated with focused practice as soon as it detects these environmental markers. This creates what researchers call environmental priming, where the context itself generates the mental state you need. Visual cues are particularly powerful because your brain processes visual information faster than any other sensory input. Having your practice materials visible and easily accessible reduces what psychologists call activation energy, the mental effort required to begin a task. When your guitar is on a stand rather than in a case, when your journal is open to a fresh page with a pen beside it, when your workout clothes are laid out the night before, you eliminate micro decisions that can derail your practice routine. Consistency of environmental cues becomes even more powerful when combined with what behaviorists call implementation intentions, pre-planned responses to specific environmental triggers. Your brain can learn to automatically transition into focused practice mode when it encounters your designated practice environment, bypassing the conscious decision-making process that often becomes a source of resistance or procrastination. The inverse is equally important. Environmental friction can sabotage even strong motivation. If you have to search for materials, clear space, or make multiple decisions before beginning practice, each obstacle provides an opportunity for your brain to choose the easier path of avoidance. This is why environmental design is more reliable than motivation. It works with your brain's natural tendency toward efficiency rather than fighting against it. Social environment also influences behavior through mirror neuron activation. These specialized neurons fire both when you perform an action and when you observe others performing the same action. Being around people who value focused practice, whether in person or through virtual communities, makes your own practice feel more natural and socially reinforced. Your brain interprets focused work as normal rather than exceptional when it's surrounded by evidence that others engage in similar behaviors. The most profound change from consistent daily practice isn't the skill itself, it's the fundamental rewiring of your self-concept and belief systems about what you're capable of achieving. After 1 year of focused daily practice, you don't just possess a new competency, you've literally changed who you believe yourself to be at the deepest neurological level. This identity transformation occurs through what psychologists call behavioral evidence accumulation, where repeated actions create new neural pathways that support an updated self-image. Your brain maintains what researchers term autobiographical memory networks, interconnected regions that store and constantly update your sense of self based on your experiences and actions. Each time you complete your daily practice hour, especially when you don't feel like it, you're providing concrete evidence to these networks that you're someone who follows through on commitments, someone who tolerates discomfort for long-term gain, someone who prioritizes growth over immediate gratification. This evidence accumulates and literally rewrites your neural representation of your own character. The transformation happens through what neuroscientists call self-referential processing. Your medial prefrontal cortex, which governs self-awareness and identity, begins incorporating your new, consistent behaviors into its core programming. Instead of seeing yourself as someone who tries to practice or wants to get better, your brain updates to recognize you as someone who is a practitioner or as someone who develops skills. This shift from aspiration to identity is measurable through neuroimaging and creates lasting changes in how you approach challenges across all areas of life. What makes this identity shift so powerful is that it creates what psychologists call cognitive consistency pressure. Your brain has a strong drive to align your actions with your self-concept. Once you truly see yourself as someone who commits to growth, your brain begins automatically generating behaviors that match this identity. You start making better decisions about time management, You become more selective about distractions. You develop higher standards for yourself, not through forced discipline, but through natural alignment with your updated self-concept. This identity transformation also affects how others perceive and interact with you. People unconsciously detect confidence, competence, and self-discipline through subtle behavioral cues. When you genuinely believe you're someone who follows through on important commitments, this belief manifests in your posture, speech patterns, decision-making, and how you handle challenges. Others begin treating you as someone who gets things done, creating positive feedback loops that reinforce your new identity. The research shows that identity level change is the most durable form of behavioral transformation because it operates at the level of core beliefs rather than surface level habits. When your practice becomes part of who you are rather than something you do, it becomes virtually impossible to abandon.